Hey, welcome to another edition of Strategic Moves with Lou. I'm Mike Hendron, a licensed real estate agent here in Wichita Falls, Texas, with Strategic Realty. And seated next to me is Lou Italis, the owner-broker of Strategic Realty.
Hey.
Hence the name of the show, Strategic Moves with Lou. That would be her. How you doing?
Good.
Good? Feeling good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Busy?
Busy.
Yeah, me too.
I can't keep up.
Oh, I got a headache. I'm so busy. Okay, it's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah.
But anyway, a couple of things we want to talk about this week. So I heard the day that we're recording this particular show, on the way in to the studio this morning, I heard a news story about median home prices in San Francisco. The median home price in San Francisco, California, $1.3 million. That's the median price, which means
bananas, y'all.
half the homes in San Francisco are more expensive than that. And that puts, well, actually, it now officially has made San Francisco the most expensive city in America to live in. When you factor in all the other factors of inflation, all the other cost of living, food, fuel, medicine, all of it.
I'm surprised that it would be more expensive than New York.
They have now surpassed New York City as the most expensive city in America to live in. And, you know, what that really means in real terms is you've got a whole lot of people in San Francisco now that cannot afford to own a home. You start talking mortgages in the millions of, $1 million plus, that's a hefty payment. And you got to have one heck of an income to support that.
I wonder what it's going to do to the listings over there, if it's going to encourage a lot of people to put their houses on the market or not.
Well, look what
usually that's kind of a reaction.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden, oh gosh, payday, Well, look what we've seen here in Texas. We've seen this huge influx of people from the West Coast over the last decade, really. But especially in the last 2 to 3, 4 years, we've seen this massive exodus of people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, California is hemorrhaging people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are coming to Texas, and they're coming here for a couple of different reasons. Number one, home prices are not anywhere close to, even in Austin, they're nowhere nearly as wild as they are on the West Coast.
And they're overpaying for their houses.
Yeah.
So they're raising our home values.
Well, you figure someone on the West Coast, if they bought a home, let's say they bought a home 20 years ago.
But it's artificially inflating our prices.
It is. But
because it's not really worth it.
Well, but they're coming in with, if they bought a home 20 years ago for, say, $600,000, and now they're selling it for $1 million, and let's say they've got $350,000, $400,000 in actual equity in the home, they come to Texas with $400,000 in their pocket,
and not more, because they've probably been paying on that loan.
Right, and they show up with all this cash in their pocket, and they find a $250,000 home in Texas they want to buy, and they make a $350,000 offer on the house. And you're right, it does artificially inflate our prices, but now they're paying cash. Well, if you're a homeowner here in Texas or a seller here in Texas, you're not going to turn down a cash offer, especially one that's tens of thousands, if not more, above what you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's creating a little bit of a wild storm, because
it is.
The applications for mortgages are also down. There's a lot of cash buyers, and it shocks me to really realize how much cash people have, or how many people have that kind of cash to just throw on a house versus getting a loan. Because before, back in the, even 6 years ago, it was cheaper, or it was more advantageous for people to get a mortgage because their mortgage interest was only 3%,
right?
Or less. They could probably get something in the 2%.
I had one last year that, 2.65.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're paying 2.65% on a mortgage for 30 years, you can use your cash to make more money. And you could just leave that cash in the bank and make more money in interest than paying a mortgage is going to cost you for 30 years.
Right.
So, but now they're starting to see the flip side of that. They're starting to see the interest rates are going up again. And, maybe now and there's so much competition out there that cash is key. Cash is king, or cash is power. So buying power. And so they'll go in there and they'll buy a house for cash, and they might get a small mortgage later on to free up some of their equity. But so you're seeing a lot less mortgage loans happening, a lot less applications.
Yeah, we heard recently
and
mortgage
a lot more
applications.
competition. It's making it harder for the average FHA, VA, buyer to be able to get something because they're competing with cash buyers.
I was going to say it creates this imbalance in the marketplace.
It's like this forever game.
Yeah, if you got two people vying for the same property, let's say it's a $200,000 house, and you got the borrower over here who can get an FHA loan for, let's say, $250,000, but you got a cash buyer over here that's got $300,000 in cash in their pocket. Well, who do you think's going to win that fight?
Yeah, I mean, even if the FHA person were to go up to $300,000 in their offer, they just are still not able to compete with that cash offer because a lot of sellers are saying, well, if I take the cash offer, then it's not subject to the appraisal.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about repairs or, cash buyers can still ask for repairs, but
sure.
they don't have a lot of the waiting period is shorter. There's so many other variables that are attractive to sellers that they are just taking the cash offer. Sometimes they might even take a little bit less with cash, although that's not quite happening nowadays. A lot of you cash buyers are really, I have a couple of cash buyers myself, and they're trying to still underbid on these houses that are getting 3, 4, 5 loans, and they're trying to say, oh, well, I've got cash, so I should be able to get a good deal. It doesn't work like that. It's almost like the reverse right now.
Yeah.
If you got cash, you better overpay a little bit on the deal in order for you to beat out an FHA or a VA loan.
Yeah, you're gonna have to step up.
Yeah,
you have to really step up.
You can give an offer out there. You can you have a property that's listed for $200,000, and you get an FHA borrower that's willing to pay $220,000. So why would I take $180,000 cash offer?
Right.
The incentive is yes, you don't have to worry about the appraisal, but that's still $40,000 on the table. So sellers will weigh the pros and cons.
And do you have cash buyers that'll go, I don't need inspection. I don't want an inspection.
Don't need an inspection, don't need, surveys, don't need...
Which I personally would never...
warranties.
I would never buy a house without getting an inspection done.
Even if it's for your own edification, it's a good idea. Even if you're not going to get the option period, which you don't have to. I mean, if you want to compete in this market, you don't have to get an option period. It's just advisable because you want to protect your earnest money.
Right.
But in realistically, if you're willing to take the house as is, and you've already done a little bit of your due diligence, and you're kind of aware of what possibly could be wrong with the property, go in there and really do an inspection yourself.
Right.
Have your agent, hopefully can recognize, if you have a good agent, they can hopefully help you recognize any areas of concern.
Right.
And then you can waive the option period, but still get an inspection because you really, even if you're, sometimes it's almost worth it if you do the inspection, you don't have an option period because you're competing and you want to be able to compete with your offers. If you find out that there's some really functional obsolescence that you cannot overcome, or a big issue that you really just can't overcome, then you can walk away and lose $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is that you put down on the earnest money. But that you just have to weigh the pros and cons, basically, is what I'm saying.
You do, and
you still want to do the inspection mainly because you want to know what you're getting into.
Yeah,
and you want to have a honey-do list so that your husband can have something to do for himself whenever he moves you in, as a wife.
I feel attacked. Anyway.
Sorry, that sounded a little sexist, I'm sure. But I'm just
you're right. Yeah.
You want to have a honey-do list. You want to have a list of all the things that you can be cognizant that need to be repaired, whether it's just a little doorknob that's a little bit ajar, or just those little tiny details. It's always a good idea.
It's a few $100s well invested to have a professional, trained, licensed inspector go into that property, because, and we've had this conversation with inspectors on this show before, that inspector's job is not to go in there and find everything that's right with that property.
Yeah.
His job or her job is to find everything that is wrong with that property.
Right.
Whether it's something as simple as a missing door sweep on a storm door, or a loose doorknob, or
a hinge that's off,
aluminum wiring running all through the house. I mean, you just don't know. And that's
foundation. Well, they won't really be able to tell you if there is a foundation issue. They'll just outline possibilities.
Right.
Like there could be a foundation issue, so get
there's
a
some
foundation
telltale
inspection.
signs.
Yeah, there's telltale signs that you can tell. You know, cracking in the veneer on the outside if it's brick.
Sure.
You know, cracks in the floor, cracks above the doorways, cracks in the ceiling. You know, those kinds of things can be pretty self-evident of possible shifting issues.
Which, by the way, everything you just named there is very common around here.
Very common.
You see it in homes that are 3 years old. You see it in homes that are 100 years old. You know, I mean, it happens. The soil here moves, and I think I've had a couple of inspectors tell me you do get to a point to where it moves. It'll move to a certain point, and then it's probably not going to move anymore.
Moving. Yes, yeah. I mean, I've seen houses that have foundation issues for 20 years and don't get any worse.
Right. It just stops.
You know, it's just a, you know, it just happened at one point or another, whether it was during the drought or whatever, and it's just never correct. It's never been corrected, and it hasn't gotten any worse. So, I mean, there's those kinds of issues too that you'll find, and foundation issues aren't as scary as they used to be. If you have a pier and beam, it's usually a little bit cheaper to get foundation issues repaired. If you have concrete, it's usually about $300 to $500 per pier that need to be put in. Yeah. The major issue with foundation issues, people, is not necessarily the repair of the foundation. It's the repair of the foundation.
Right, right.
So whenever they go and do the foundation repair, it might have only cost you $2,500. But then that might also cause shifting in the sheetrock. And they would, you'd have bigger cracks now that you have to repair. So you might need to repair more sheetrock. Right. Or, maybe they put a new roof on it since the foundation issue happened. And now the roof is starting to, the beams in the ceiling are starting to shift, and the roof would need to be replaced to be able to fix that. Yeah. So you have to be careful. If you start repairing one thing, it might break others. Yeah. So sometimes if I see a house that my clients are interested in and it has a possible foundation issue, I usually advise them to get a foundation inspection to see what the amount of damage is and how much it would cost to get that repaired, how significant it is. And if it's not significant, I can usually ask the other agent if the buyer or the seller is familiar with when this occurred. If it's been a long time, then sometimes I'll tell them, listen, you probably don't want to fix this. If it ain't getting any worse, you don't want to fix it. If it does, once you buy it, if in 2 years you start to notice a bigger difference, then by all means get it fixed. But sometimes fixing the issue will make other things worse.
Yeah. Sure can.
Especially with concrete.
Yeah.
If you have a concrete house and there's plumbing inside the concrete and you start messing around with the foundation, then you can actually also damage some plumbing.
Which may be why my house, most of the plumbing goes through the attic.
Some of the, it's funny because yours was built in the early 2000s, right?
No. My house is a 75 model.
Oh.
Yeah, it's older.
I wonder when they started doing, because they don't do that much anymore.
Well, this is actually, at some point, I think they probably had slab leaks and it had foundation work done. My particular property had several $1,000s worth of foundation work done to it before I bought it.
Some houses were actually built, and I don't remember in what age group it was, but some houses were being built with the plumbing going through the ceiling and the attic. And
mine's
versus
all PEX.
In the slab.
Mine's PEX.
Oh.
So it's
very
the good stuff.
Yeah.
Which all new builds now, I think almost everybody's plumbing with PEX. I don't know if
PVC or PEX, whichever one.
I don't know if anybody's doing copper anymore.
Oh, no,
it's
no,
just,
no.
It's expensive, and it's not very forgiving when it freezes. It just isn't.
I think the only contractors that are still using copper are going to be AC and
yeah,
those kinds.
Well, they have to for your HVAC applications. You have to. But we were talking about the mortgage applications down 40% year over year. Part of that is due to it's a big number, but part of that's got to be due to interest rates. I'm sure interest rates have gone up. That's got to be a factor.
And a lot of cash buyers.
But how much do you think inventory has played a role in that? People just giving up on trying to get a mortgage because they can't find a house they want.
I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination of all three things. The interest rates have gone up. There's a lot more cash buyers out there, and there's a lot less inventory. So I think it's like a perfect storm right now at this point.
Yeah, and that inventory situation, how does that correct itself? You think? What do you think is the?
I think we just have a shortage of inventory of homes, period. So we need more builds.
We need more builds to make up the deficit. Yeah.
And we, I mean, honestly, I think that there's a large pool of sellers out there that are just still very scared to put their house on the market.
Yeah.
They're curious to, I mean, I get calls all the time. Oh, how much is my house worth? You know, because they're curious to see what their possibilities are, but they're still very afraid to sell it because they don't know if they can get it replaced.
Well, and that's the thing, you know. Okay, what am I going to go buy next? And am I going to have enough cash to make a substantial down payment to make a
competitive offer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, is it going to
like
work?
Damned if you do, and damned if you don't. Right?
You know, and I had one like that myself that fell through because the lady wanted to sell. She wanted to downsize.
Yeah.
She wanted to sell her big house and get into a smaller house.
Yeah.
But she didn't want to move into anything that she had to remodel. She needed something that she could just take furniture out of house A, put it in house B, done.
Yeah.
And we couldn't find one. And so she had to pull her listing because she didn't want to run the risk of, because her house was in an area and in a price range that she knew it was going to attract a lot of attention, and it did. But she was scared to death that she was not going to be able to get into another home.
Right.
And the one that we,
did a contingency offer on one, and it just didn't work out.
That fell apart, and then we just couldn't find one. And you know, she wanted to be in within a certain geographical area.
There's a couple more listings on that road,
which we may need to look at.
I need to give her a call.
I may need to give her a call, but it's just one of those things where people they get scared, and it's understandable.
Or talk to Ben, because I think that he was looking at buying one over on Texoa.
Oh, really?
Which is just one street over.
Well, then I need to give him a call.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. People, I can understand the intrepidation about doing this. I get the fear. I get it.
I think a lot of it too, like if so for instance, I just had a seller. We put their house on the market. We got an offer, and we waited a little too long to start shopping for her to buy something. So she wound up having to move out of the house. Thankfully, at that point, I had a rental property that was available, so I let her move into one of the rental properties that I have temporarily. And then we went shopping in earnest, and we did eventually find something that she was satisfied with. But I mean, it was just a little frustrating because anytime that she made an offer on a house, it was or she liked a house, it was already in contract.
Yep.
And so it's making it, you have to become like really a very aggressive agent.
Oh, yeah.
You know, going after the ones that aren't listed yet, you know, like just really.
I had one last year. We looked at least 30, maybe 35 properties before we found one. And it was a combination of we would look at a property and it just wouldn't be the one, or we look at one, we put in an offer, we get beat out of it. Or we look at it and before we can get an offer in on it, someone else has already got it in contract. You know, I mean, it was just a whole
quagmire of problems.
And I mean, we spent literally, you know, on this guy's days off, we spent literally, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours driving around.
That's what
looking at
I've
houses.
been doing with these buyers that I'm dealing with right now is just looking at houses, and they've already put in offers on like 3 properties,
Yeah.
and
Just it's sometimes it's a really, really tough thing, between trying to find the home you want that meets your needs, because everybody's needs are different. If you've got a large family, if you got 3-4 kids, a 2-bedroom home or even a 3-bedroom home is probably not necessarily going to do you any good. So it's trying to find a property that fits your needs, in the geographical area that you want to be in. Some people, like I've got one I'm working with right now. The school district that they were going to be in was very important. Either being close enough to be able to transfer their child into a particular district or to move into a district. That was dictating the whole search. Is school district. That was the number one thing on the checklist, is what school district can we be in? And they had identified 3 basically that they were willing to look at. And if we couldn't find one in one of those 3, and okay, we're just not going to do it. And they were fortunate in that they were in a situation where they weren't in a rush. They had a home. They didn't have to sell it in order to buy another home. They're not under the gun to move out in the next 60, 90 days, whatever. They've got time. So we had some time to take our time and shop and be a little more selective and a little more aggressive in what we were doing. But, we have found them one. But it's like sometimes it just takes time to find that one property. And with the inventory numbers being as low as they are, it makes it that much harder. I mean, what do you do?
And then not to mention, you were looking for something with a little bit of land, which is even more of a unicorn.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, if you want
in the school district that they want,
if you want acreage
of the quality that they want,
exactly,
and a little bit of acreage, it's like, oh my gosh, do you want to just?
If you want acreage, that complicates the matter, because we have a lot of land around us around here.
Yeah.
We just don't have a lot of people who want to sell it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, people are hoarding all of their properties right now.
And the price per acre has never been higher.
It's crazy. I saw a listing the other day for $10,000 an acre.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I know. I talked to a couple a week or so ago that have
developed.
Yeah. Oh, well, they've got acreage and they've got a house on it, whatever. And someone had made them an offer, and they asked me, they said, does this look like a fair offer? And they told me the number, and I said, how many square feet is your house? Okay. And they gave me some details on the house, when it was built, all the amenities. I'm like, okay. I said, how much land you got? And they told me, and I was like, no. I said, this is lowball.
Yeah.
This is like,
you're leaving money on the table.
This is like $3,500 an acre. I'm like, nobody around you is selling land that cheap. Nobody. No one.
It's a good thing they called you then, because they might have saved themselves.
Well, and they were concerned. They were already concerned that the number looked too low.
Okay.
And I confirmed it for them. They're like, that's what we thought. And they said, well, what would be a fair number? And I told them what I thought would be a fair number. And they're like, whoa.
Are you kidding? Yeah.
Like,
they probably think
could we really get that? I said, look around you. I said, I can show you where land in that county, in this area, has sold for numbers at or even above that. And I'm like, you're leaving money on the table if you take this deal. This is not a good deal. It's a good deal for the buyer, but it ain't a good deal for you.
Yeah.
And so I think I warned him off that one, and probably made a potential buyer very mad. But it's like, you can't, you have to be careful. You can price yourself out of range.
Yeah, you can go overboard.
And end up making it impossible.
But keep
to
in
find
mind,
a buyer.
yeah, I mean, unless you're dealing with cash, every contract is going to be, unless you get some sort of appraisal waiver, it's going to be subject to the appraisal.
That's just
because lenders are still not allowing for paying above asking or above the appraised value.
Yeah.
Unless you have a bunch of cash and you can get a waiver, and you're doing conventional. Conventional is the only one that'll let you pay above the asking price.
Well, I've had one that
above the
did
appraisal
that, and
price.
it was a conventional, and it wasn't an all. It was a probably 54, 55, 56% down payment. They put about half the sales price they put in cash, and the lender said, "We don't need an appraisal. You're good."
Well, yeah, in that sense, the lender is probably not going to be too concerned because they're mainly their concern is going to be their risk. They want to assess their risk.
Sure.
So as long as it's below 80% of the value of the house, then they feel like their risk is lower. If your if you're buying a house that's $200,000 and you're putting $100,000 down, so you're really only getting a loan on $100,000. As long as the house is worth at least somewhere around $200,000,
Right.
it's worth it for the bank.
Yeah.
Because if you default on that loan, there's built-in equity.
And from what I hear, appraisals are still going kind of slow around here. We're still having trouble getting those done.
We'll have to talk to Brady, but yeah,
quickly.
they are taking at least about 45 to 60 days to close on some of these houses.
Ooh, 60 days. Wow.
Just depends. Depends on the loan.
I know 45 seems to have become the standard number that the title companies are asking for, at least 45. That's what I'm hearing. But, even that, it's, of course, cash deals you can close a lot quicker because you don't have all this other stuff to necessarily worry about. But, if it's if bank financing and you got to have the appraisal, from what I'm being told right now, we still don't have enough appraisers in the marketplace.
And that's not going to change overnight. I think that's going to take, it's taken generations for it to come to this point. So it's probably going to have to take generations for it to reverse itself.
Yeah. We may not be around here to see the next change. And I don't know, it could be 50 years from now,
Yeah. By then my granddaughter will be a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah, mine too. You and I won't be worried about any of this stuff. So anyway, well, guys, if you're looking to buy or sell a property, we would love to represent you. Give me a call. It's Mike Hendren, Strategic Realty, 940-232-3876 is my direct line, 940-232-3876. You can also reach out to us through the website, strategicrealty.net. You can call the office, which is
940-689-7900.
what she said. And you can check out all the properties we've got at strategicrealty.net. We've got some new builds going up in Wichita Falls.
We certainly do.
And would certainly love to talk to you about those. Those properties are starting at $195 and go up from there.
Right.
And we've got multiple floor plans you can pick from.
Well, at least a couple.
Yeah, we got a few. We got a few.
We've got multiple lots that you can choose from.
And more development coming later down the line.
Yep.
But
and we also have the possibility of in-house financing, and
that's right.
And we have a loan process that's fairly simple.
Yeah.
So, if you're qualified and you want to speed up the process a little bit, we can do some in-house lending.
Sure can. So give us a call. Again, you can reach me, 940-232-3876, or again, check us out online at strategicrealty.net. We do hope that you'll share the link to this program with everybody you know. Tell everybody about it.
The new builds are on Northwest Drive.
That's right. I forgot to mention that. Yes, Northwest Drive, which is situated between, if you're the local area, North Beverly Drive and Loop 11. Right in between those two roads. So you've got easy access there to Shepherd Air Force Base, to shopping, to everything. You literally, no problem getting anywhere you want to be in a hurry. So give us a call, check it out. And again, be sure to share the link to this program with everybody you know. And of course, you hear us every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on News Talk 1290 AM and 96.3 FM as well. So until next week, guys, take care. We'll see you down the road.
Subscribe, like, and share.